15 years ago, John Harper lived a quiet and unremarkable life in the small town of Willow Creek. He wasn't rich or famous, but he had everything he needed, or so he thought. At 35, John worked as a mechanic at a local garage, fixing cars for people who barely remembered his name once their vehicles were repaired. His days followed a predictable rhythm. Wake up early, go to work, come home late, eat dinner alone, and fall asleep watching old movies on TV. It was simple, safe, and comfortable, but also lonely. One cold, rainy evening, everything changed. As John drove home from work along the winding roads outside Willow Creek, the rain poured down heavily, creating rivers across the asphalt. The windshield wipers struggled to keep up with the deluge, making it hard for him to see clearly. Just as he approached the edge of town, something caught his eye. A faint movement under the flickering light of a broken bus shelter. Curious, John slowed his truck and pulled over. When he stepped out into the storm, he saw 6 young girls, huddled together under the leaking roof. They looked soaked to the bone, shivering uncontrollably and clutching each other like lifelines. Their clothes were torn, muddy and mismatched, and their faces were streaked with dirt and tears. Some stared blankly ahead, while others buried their heads in the arms of the girl beside them. None of them spoke. John felt a lump rise in his throat. These weren't just kids playing around. They were scared, abandoned, and utterly alone. Something about their silent desperation tugged at his heartstrings. He couldn't drive away and leave them there. Walking closer, he called out, gently, "Hey, are you all right? What's going on?" At first, they didn't respond, but when one of the older girls, perhaps 12 or 13, finally looked up, her eyes told a story of pain and fear that no child should ever have to endure. She hesitated before answering, her voice trembling. We don't have anywhere to go." The words hit John like a punch to the gut. He glanced back at his truck, then at the fragile group of children before him. His mind raced with questions. Who were they? Where did they come from? Why were they here? But deep down, he already knew the answer. They were lost, unwanted, and desperate for help. Without thinking twice, John made a decision that would change his life forever. "Come on," he said softly, gesturing toward his truck. "You can't stay out here. Let me take you somewhere warm and dry." The girls exchanged wary glances, unsure whether to trust this stranger. But after a moment of hesitation, hunger and exhaustion won out over caution. One by one, they climbed into the truck, their wet clothes leaving damp spots on the seats. As John drove them back to his modest home on the outskirts of town, he wondered what he'd gotten himself into. He lived in a tiny house with only 2 bedrooms, barely enough space for himself, let alone 6 additional people. And yet, as he glanced in the rearview mirror at the frightened faces behind him, he realized he couldn't turn back now. Whatever happened next, he owed it to these girls to try. When they arrived, John ushered them inside, apologizing for the mess. His home wasn't fancy. It had peeling wallpaper, creaky floorboards, and a couch that sagged in the middle, but it was clean and dry. He handed them towels to dry off and rummaged through his closet for spare blankets and clothes. The girls accepted his offering silently, still too traumatized to speak. That night, John cooked a big pot of soup, even though most of it went uneaten. The girls sat awkwardly at the table, picking at their bowls without making eye contact. After dinner, he showed them where they could sleep, in his living room, which he hastily cleared of clutter. They curled up together on the floor, wrapped in blankets, their bodies pressed close for comfort. Lying awake in bed later that night, John replayed the events of the evening in his mind. Who were these girls? How had they ended up abandoned? On the side of the road? And perhaps most importantly, what was he supposed to do now? He wasn't a parent. He didn't know the first thing about raising children, let alone 6 traumatized ones. Yet, despite his doubts, he felt a strange sense of purpose, a determination to protect them, if only for tonight. Over the next few days, John learned more about the girls. There was Mia, the oldest, who seemed to take charge naturally. Always. looking out for the younger ones. Then there was Lily, a shy girl with a sketchbook she carried everywhere, drawing pictures of places she dreamed of visiting. Emily, the youngest, clung to a battered puzzle box, piecing together fragments as if trying to make sense of her broken world. The others, Sophie, Chloe, and Ava, stayed mostly silent, their eyes hollow with grief. Each girl had a story, though none of them were ready to share it yet. Through bits and pieces of conversation, John pieced together that they had all been rejected by society in some way. Some had been abandoned by families who couldn't afford to care for them. Others had run away from abusive homes. They had found each other by chance, banding together for survival, but their bond was fragile, built on shared trauma rather than trust. Despite the challenges, John refused to give up. Every morning he woke up determined to create a sense of normalcy for them. He set rules, not because he wanted to control them, but because structure gave them something to hold on to. Meals were served at regular times, chores were assigned, and bedtime was strictly enforced. At first the girls resisted, testing his patience with tantrums and tears. But slowly they began to adapt, finding comfort in the routine. John also tried to connect with them on a personal level. He spent evenings telling stories about his own childhood, hoping to break the ice. Sometimes he succeeded. A rare smile would flash across one of their faces, or a hesitant question would slip out. Other times, they retreated into themselves, shutting him out completely. But John didn't push. He understood that healing took time, and he was willing to wait. As weeks turned into months, the atmosphere in the house shifted. The girls started opening up, sharing snippets of their pasts and dreams for the future. They laughed more often, their giggles echoing through the halls like music. For the first time in years, they felt safe, not because of the walls surrounding them, but because of the man who had taken them in when no one else would. Looking back, John realized that rescuing those girls hadn't just changed their lives, it had changed his too. Before that fateful night, he had been drifting through life without direction, content to exist rather than truly live. Now he had a family, a chaotic, imperfect, beautiful family, and a reason to keep going, even on the hardest days. Little did he know, their journey was only beginning. The first few months with the 6 girls were far from easy. John Harper quickly realized that providing food, shelter, and clothes was only the beginning. These children weren't just physically battered, they were emotionally scarred. Years of neglect, abuse, and abandonment had left deep wounds that wouldn't heal overnight. Some nights John lay awake wondering if he'd made the right decision. Could one man really undo the damage inflicted by years of hardship? But every time doubt crept in, he reminded himself why he'd taken them in, to give them a chance at a better life. At first, communication was nearly impossible. The girls rarely spoke, flinching at sudden movements or loud noises. They slept in shifts, always on edge, as though expecting danger to strike at any moment. Even simple tasks like eating meals together felt like monumental challenges. John would set plates of food on the table, only for the girls to stare at it silently, their hands trembling as they reached for their forks. Sometimes they refused to eat altogether, retreating to the living room to huddle under blankets instead. But John didn't give up. He knew trust couldn't be forced, it had to be earned. So he started small, giving them space while ensuring they felt safe. Every morning he greeted them warmly, even when they ignored him. During meals he talked about mundane things, how the weather was unusually cold this year or how his favorite football team was doing poorly. At first his words fell on deaf ears, but gradually the girls began to relax. One day, Mia, the oldest, surprised him by asking, "Why do you care so much?" Her voice was quiet, almost accusing, but there was curiosity behind her question. John paused, considering his answer carefully. "Because everyone deserves a second chance," he said finally, "and because I believe you're stronger than what happened to you." Mia didn't respond, but her expression softened slightly. That tiny breakthrough gave John hope. Over the next few weeks, he introduced routines to create a sense of stability. Mornings began with chores, simple tasks like sweeping the floor or folding laundry. Afternoons were reserved for walks around the neighborhood, where fresh air and sunlight could lift their spirits. Evenings ended with storytelling sessions during which John encouraged the girls to share anything they wanted, or nothing at all. Slowly but surely, cracks began to appear in their guarded exteriors. Lily, the quiet artist, became the first to open up. She carried her sketchbook everywhere, filling its pages with vibrant drawings of fantastical worlds. One evening, while sitting by the fireplace, she hesitantly showed John one of her sketches, a colorful city floating among the clouds. "This is where I want to live someday," she whispered. "Somewhere safe." John smiled, leaning closer to admire her work. "It's beautiful, Lily. Maybe one day you'll get there." From that moment on, Lily started sharing more of her art, using her sketches as a way to express emotions she couldn't put into words. Emily, the youngest, found solace in puzzles. She spent hours piecing together jigsaw puzzles, her brow furrowed in concentration. When she completed one, she'd hold it up proudly, waiting for John's approval. "Good job, Em," he'd say, ruffling her hair. "You're getting faster every day." Those little moments of praise meant the world to her, slowly chipping away at the walls she'd built around herself. Meanwhile, Sophie, Chloe, and Ava, the quieter trio, began finding their own ways to connect. Sophie loved gardening and took charge of caring for the houseplants John kept on the windowsill. Chloe discovered a passion for cooking, experimenting with recipes she found online. And Ava, who rarely spoke, surprised everyone by singing softly to herself while washing dishes. Her voice was hauntingly beautiful, and hearing it brought tears to John's eyes. As trust grew, so did their confidence. The girls started interacting more with each other, forming bonds that went beyond mere survival. Mia continued to act as their unofficial leader, mediating disputes and offering advice. Lily and Emily often teamed up to tackle projects, whether it was redecorating the living room or planning imaginary adventures. Sophie, Chloe, and Ava formed their own tight-knit group, giggling over inside jokes and sharing secrets late at night. But progress wasn't linear. There were setbacks, nights when nightmares woke them screaming, days when old fears resurfaced. Once during a thunderstorm, Emily panicked and hid under the bed, refusing to come out until the storm passed. Another time, Ava accidentally broke a vase and burst into tears, convinced John would throw her out. Instead, he knelt beside her and said gently, "Accidents happen. We fix them together, okay?" These moments tested John's patience, but they also strengthened his resolve. He learned to read their body language, recognizing signs of distress before it escalated. He taught them coping mechanisms, for example, counting backward from 10 when they felt overwhelmed or squeezing a stress ball to release tension. Most importantly, he reassured them repeatedly that they were safe and loved. To further support their healing, John enrolled the girls in school. It wasn't an easy transition. On their first day, they clung to each other nervously, drawing curious stares from classmates. Rumors spread quickly in a small town like Willow Creek, and some kids teased them mercilessly. "Why are there so many of you?" one boy jeered during recess. "Are you all related?" Instead of crumbling under the pressure, the girls stood tall. Mia shot back, "No, we're not related, but we're family anyway." Her boldness earned her respect, and soon, others began warming up to them. By the end of the semester, they all had made friends, joined clubs, and excelled academically. Teachers marveled at their resilience, praising their determination and creativity. Back at home, John celebrated their achievements, no matter how small. When Lily won an art competition, he hung her winning piece proudly on the wall. When Emily solved a particularly tricky math problem, he cheered louder than anyone else. And when Chloe baked her first successful cake, he ate 3 slices, declaring it the best dessert he'd ever tasted. Through it all, John never stopped reminding them of their worth. "You're not defined by your past," he told them one evening during a rare heart-to-heart conversation. "You're survivors, fighters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Those words resonated deeply with the girls. For the first time in their lives, they began to see themselves not as victims, but as victors. They laughed more freely, played more boldly, and dreamed bigger than ever before. Their laughter filled the house, chasing away the shadows of loneliness that had once lingered there. Looking back, John realized that building trust wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about consistency, showing up day after day, proving through actions rather than words that he cared. He didn't have all the answers, and he certainly wasn't perfect, but he was present, and that made all the difference. By the end of the first year, the transformation was undeniable. The frightened, broken girls who had shown up on John's doorstep were gone, replaced by confident young women eager to embrace life. They still had scars, both visible and invisible, but they were learning to carry them with grace, and in return they gave John something he hadn't realized he needed: a sense of purpose. One evening, as they gathered around the dinner table, Mia raised her glass of juice. "To John," she said, her voice steady and sincere, "for believing in us when no one else did." The others followed suit, clinking their glasses together. Tears welled up in John's eyes as he looked at their smiling faces. In that moment, he knew he'd done the right thing, not just for them, but for himself. Together, they had created something extraordinary, a family forged not by blood but by choice. Little did they know their journey was far from over. But for now, they were content to savor the joy of being together, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. As the years passed, life in John Harper's home became a tapestry of laughter, growth, and discovery. The 6 girls, Mia, Lily, Emily, Sophie, Chloe, and Ava, were no longer the frightened children who had first stepped into his house. They were blossoming into remarkable young women, each with unique gifts that seemed to defy explanation. What started as ordinary talents began to reveal themselves as extraordinary abilities, leaving even John astonished. It all began subtly. One evening, as John tinkered with an old engine in the garage, Mia walked in with a thoughtful expression. "You're going to need a new gasket," she said casually, pointing at the car. John raised an eyebrow. "How do you know that?" he asked, skeptical but curious. She shrugged. "I just feel it." Skeptical but willing to humor her, John checked, and sure enough, the gasket was cracked. From that day on, Mia's knack for predicting outcomes grew sharper. Whether it was guessing which part of a machine would fail next or foreseeing weather changes days before they happened, her instincts were uncanny. At first, John dismissed it as coincidence, but as her predictions proved accurate time and again, he couldn't ignore it anymore. "You've got a gift, Mia," he told her one evening. "Use it wisely." Lily's talent emerged through her art. Her sketches, once confined to paper, began taking on a life of their own. One night, while cleaning up after dinner, John noticed something strange about one of Lily's paintings hanging on the wall. Under the soft glow of the moonlight streaming through the window, the painting shimmered faintly, revealing hidden details that weren't visible during the day. A tree in the background seemed to sway gently, its leaves rustling silently. Startled, John called Lily over. When she saw it, her eyes widened in wonder. "It's like my dreams are coming alive," she whispered. Encouraged by this discovery, Lily experimented further, creating pieces that responded to emotions. If someone stood near her artwork feeling happy, the colors brightened and danced. If sadness lingered, the hues dulled, reflecting the viewer's mood. People who saw her work were mesmerized, calling it magic on canvas. Word spread quickly, and soon galleries across the country wanted to showcase her creations. Despite her growing fame, Lily remained humble, crediting her inspiration to the family that had believed in her when no one else did. Emily's puzzle-solving skills also took an unexpected turn. While helping John fix a broken clock one afternoon, she noticed patterns in the mechanism that others missed. Within minutes, she reassembled it perfectly, explaining how each gear interacted with the next. Impressed, John challenged her with increasingly complex problems, from deciphering codes in books to troubleshooting software glitches on his computer. To everyone's amazement, Emily solved them effortlessly, her mind working faster than anyone could keep up with. Her abilities caught the attention of a local tech company looking for innovative thinkers. They offered her an internship despite her young age, recognizing her potential. Emily thrived in the role, developing algorithms that improved efficiency and accuracy in data analysis. By the time she turned 16, she had co-founded a startup focused on artificial intelligence, using technology to tackle real-world issues like climate change and healthcare access. Though her success brought wealth and recognition, Emily never forgot her roots. She donated a portion of her earnings to charities supporting underprivileged children, inspired by the kindness John had shown her. Sophie, Chloe, and Ava discovered their own special talents too. Sophie's love for gardening evolved into something extraordinary. Plants flourished under her care, growing larger and healthier than anyone thought possible. Neighbors joked that her green thumb must be magical, but there was truth to their teasing. Flowers bloomed out of season, vegetables grew twice their normal size, and even dying trees revived under her touch. Sophie used her gift to start a community garden, teaching others how to nurture nature and providing fresh produce to families in need. Chloe's culinary skills reached new heights as well. Her dishes didn't just taste good, they made people feel things. A bite of her apple pie brought back memories of childhood summers. A sip of her soup warmed hearts on cold winter nights. Restaurants begged her to join their teams, but Chloe preferred cooking for those who mattered most, her family. Every meal she prepared was infused with love, turning ordinary dinners into unforgettable experiences. Ava, the quietest of the group, found her voice, not literally, but through music. Though she rarely spoke, her singing voice carried emotions words couldn't express. One evening, during a power outage, Ava picked up a guitar John had lying around and began strumming softly. As she sang, the room fell silent, everyone captivated by the raw beauty of her melody. From then on, Ava embraced her talent, performing at local events and fundraisers. Her performances moved audiences to tears, earning her a reputation as a rising star. Despite their individual successes, the girls remained inseparable. They supported each other through every challenge, celebrating victories big and small. And John? He watched proudly as they transformed not just their own lives, but the lives of those around them. Their journey wasn't without obstacles. There were moments of doubt, frustration, and fear, but they faced them together, united by the bond they'd forged. One summer, the girls decided to organize a neighborhood fair to raise money for a local shelter. Each contributed in her own way. Mia planned logistics, ensuring everything ran smoothly. Lily created vibrant posters and decorations that drew crowds from miles away. Emily designed a scavenger hunt app that kept kids entertained for hours. Sophie tended to a flower stall, selling bouquets made from her enchanted garden. Chloe baked hundreds of cookies and cakes, delighting visitors with her culinary magic. And Ava performed live, her voice weaving a spell of joy over the crowd. The event was a resounding success, raising thousands of dollars for the shelter. More importantly, it strengthened the connection between the girls and their community. For the first time, they felt truly accepted, not as outsiders, but as valued members of Willow Creek. People who had once judged them now praised their contributions, marveling at how far they'd come. That night, as they sat together under the stars, John reflected on how much had changed since the day he'd taken them in. Back then, they were lost, broken, and afraid. Now they were confident, compassionate, and capable of achieving anything they set their minds to. But what amazed him most was how they had transformed him. Before meeting them, he'd been content living a solitary, unremarkable life. They had taught him the value of love, sacrifice, and second chances. "You've done so much for us," Lily said suddenly, breaking the silence. "But we haven't done anything for you yet," John chuckled, shaking his head. "You've given me more than I ever dreamed of," he replied. "You've made my life meaningful." The girls exchanged glances, a mischievous sparkle in their eyes. "We'll see about that," Mia said with a grin. Though John didn't know it yet, they were already planning something special, a way to repay him for everything he'd done. As the fireflies danced around them and the cool breeze carried their laughter into the night, John realized that their story was far from over. Together they had built something extraordinary, a family bound not by blood but by love and resilience. No matter what the future held, he knew they would face it side by side, ready to conquer any challenge that came their way. Little did they know their greatest adventure was still waiting just beyond the horizon. The years flew by in a blur of laughter, milestones, and quiet moments of gratitude. John Harper's once modest home had become a bustling hub of creativity, ambition, and love. The 6 girls, Mia, Lily, Emily, Sophie, Chloe, and Ava, had grown into remarkable young women, each carving out her own path while staying deeply connected to the family they'd built together. But as their lives expanded beyond Willow Creek, they never forgot the man who had given them everything when they had nothing. When the time came for them to leave home, John felt a mix of pride and sadness. One by one, they moved away to pursue their dreams, taking with them the lessons he had taught them and the values they had cultivated under his roof. Mia enrolled in a prestigious university to study international relations, driven by her desire to help others avoid the hardships she'd faced. Lily traveled the world showcasing her art, her paintings now displayed in galleries from Paris to Tokyo. Emily dove headfirst into the tech industry, her innovative solutions earning accolades and transforming lives. Sophie worked tirelessly to expand her community garden project, turning it into a national initiative. Chloe opened her own bakery, where customers lined up daily for a taste of her magical creations. And Ava performed on stages across the country, her voice touching hearts and inspiring hope. Though they were scattered far and wide, the girls made it a point to stay in touch. They called John regularly, updating him on their adventures and asking about his day-to-day life. During holidays, they returned to Willow Creek, filling the house with familiar warmth and laughter. These reunions reminded John that no matter how far apart they were, their bond remained unbreakable. But the girls weren't just content to share updates, they wanted to give back. They owed John more than words could express, and they were determined to repay him in ways he never expected. It started subtly at first, with small gestures. When Mia landed an internship at a global humanitarian organization, she arranged for clean water projects to be implemented in underserved communities near Willow Creek. Lily donated proceeds from her art exhibitions to fund scholarships for local students passionate about creative fields. Emily launched a mentorship program for aspiring coders, offering free workshops at the town library. Sophie organized gardening workshops to teach sustainable farming practices, empowering families to grow their own food. Chloe hosted bake sales to raise money for homeless shelters, her signature pies selling out within minutes. And Ava performed benefit concerts, using her platform to support causes close to her heart. These efforts brought immense joy to John, but the girls weren't done yet. On the eve of his 50th birthday, they hatched a plan so grand that even Mia struggled to keep it a secret. Over months of careful coordination, they pooled their resources and talents to create something truly unforgettable, a gift that would honor not only John, but also the countless lives he had touched through them. The big day arrived, and John woke up expecting a quiet celebration. He shuffled into the kitchen, yawning, only to find the house eerily silent. "Girls?" he called out, scratching his head. Just then, the front door burst open and in walked Mia, leading the others like a parade. They were all dressed in their finest clothes, carrying balloons, banners, and wrapped presents. Behind them trailed neighbors, friends, and even former teachers, all smiling warmly. "What is this?" John stammered, overwhelmed by the sight. "Happy birthday, Dad," Ava exclaimed, throwing her arms around him. The title caught him off guard. None of them had ever called him that before. But as the word hung in the air, it felt right, natural even. The party unfolded in waves of surprises. First, Lily unveiled a massive mural painted on the side of the garage. It depicted scenes from their journey together. The rainy night, John, found them, their laughter-filled dinners and their individual achievements. At the center stood John himself, smiling proudly amidst the chaos. "This is our story," Lily explained, her voice trembling with emotion. "And you're the hero of it." Next, Emily presented a sleek tablet loaded with videos and messages from people whose lives John had impacted indirectly through the girls' work. Farmers thanked Sophie for teaching them sustainable methods. Kids praised Emily for sparking their interest in technology. And strangers expressed gratitude for Lily's art bringing beauty to their lives. Each testimonial was a testament to the ripple effect of John's kindness. Then came the pièce de résistance, a fully renovated house designed specifically to accommodate foster children. Using funds raised collectively, the girls had transformed a nearby abandoned property into a safe haven, complete with bedrooms, study areas, recreational spaces, and even a state-of-the-art kitchen equipped with Chloe's favorite baking tools. Above the entrance hung a plaque engraved with the words, "Harper House, a place for second chances." John stood speechless, tears streaming down his face. I don't know what to say," he finally managed. "You don't have to say anything," Mia said softly. "Just promise us you'll keep doing what you do best, giving kids like us a chance to shine." As if that wasn't enough, the girls revealed one final surprise: a scholarship fund established in John's name. Every year, it would provide financial assistance to students pursuing careers in fields aligned with the girls' passions: art, technology, agriculture, music, and beyond. "It's our way of paying it forward," Emily explained, her eyes shining. "Because we wouldn't be here without you." That evening, surrounded by loved ones, John reflected on how far they'd come. 15 years ago, he had taken in 6 scared, broken girls, unsure of what the future held. Now those same girls had turned his act of kindness into a legacy of love and generosity. Their success wasn't just personal, it was communal, touching countless lives in ways he couldn't have imagined. But the girls' payback didn't stop there. Life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds, and soon John found himself facing a challenge that would test his resilience, and theirs. One chilly autumn morning, he woke up feeling unusually weak. Thinking it was just fatigue, he shrugged it off and went about his day. By evening, however, the symptoms worsened: dizziness, shortness of breath, and sharp pains in his chest. Reluctantly, he called Mia, who insisted on driving him to the hospital immediately. Tests revealed that John was suffering from a serious heart condition requiring urgent surgery. The news hit the girls hard, but they rallied around him with unwavering determination. Mia coordinated logistics, ensuring John received top-notch medical care. Lily decorated his hospital room with her shimmering artwork, creating a calming atmosphere. Emily researched treatment options, consulting experts to explore every possibility. Sophie planted flowers outside the hospital, their vibrant blooms cheering up patients and staff alike. Chloe baked batches of her famous cookies, delivering them to nurses and doctors as tokens of appreciation. And Ava sang softly by John's bedside, her voice soothing both him and the other patients. Throughout his recovery, the girls took turns staying with him, making sure he never felt alone. They read to him, played games, and shared stories from their busy lives. Their presence gave him strength, fueling his determination to get better. Slowly but surely he improved, regaining his health faster than doctors anticipated. When asked about his rapid recovery, John credited not just modern medicine, but also the love and support of his daughters. By the time he returned home, winter had settled over Willow Creek, blanketing the town in snow, but inside Harper House warmth radiated from every corner. The renovations were complete, and the first group of foster children had already moved in. Watching them laugh and play, John realized that his journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning again, with a new generation of kids finding hope and healing under his roof. As the fire crackled in the hearth and the scent of Chloe's cinnamon rolls filled the air, John looked around at the faces gathered around him. His girls sat side by side, their eyes reflecting the same gratitude and determination that had carried them through the toughest times. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to truly relax, knowing that he wasn't alone anymore. Together, they had created something extraordinary, a circle of love that would continue to grow, generation after generation. Little did they know, their story was destined to inspire others far beyond Willow Creek. But for now, they were content to savor the moment, cherishing the family they had built against all odds. After all, sometimes the greatest rewards come not from grand gestures, but from opening your heart to those who need it most. Years turned into decades, and the story of John Harper and the 6 girls he had taken in became a legend in Willow Creek. What had started as an act of kindness on a rainy night had blossomed into something far greater, a testament to the power of love, resilience, and second chances. Harper House, once an abandoned property, was now a beacon of hope for children who had nowhere else to turn. Its walls echoed with laughter, its halls buzzed with activity, and its rooms were filled with stories of transformation. John, now in his late 60s, spent his days surrounded by chaos, but it was the kind of chaos that brought him immense joy. Foster kids came and went, each leaving behind a piece of their heart while taking a piece of Harper House's spirit with them. Some stayed for weeks, others for years, but no matter how long they stayed, they left changed, stronger, braver, and more hopeful than when they arrived. And at the center of it all was John, the man who had dedicated his life to giving these children the family they deserved. But John wasn't alone in this mission. The 6 girls, now grown women, remained deeply involved in the house's operations. Though they lived in different parts of the country, they returned to Willow Creek regularly, bringing their expertise and passion to ensure Harper House thrived. Mia, now a renowned humanitarian, used her connections to secure funding and resources for the program. Lily donated artwork that adorned the walls, creating an environment that inspired creativity. Emily implemented cutting-edge technology to streamline administrative tasks, making the house more efficient. Sophie expanded the community garden initiative, teaching kids sustainable farming practices. Chloe baked endless treats, ensuring there was always something sweet to lift spirits. And Ava performed concerts in the backyard, her voice weaving magic into every corner of the property. Together, they formed a team unlike any other, united by their shared history and commitment to helping others. Their bond with John remained unshakable, a foundation built on trust, gratitude, and mutual respect. They often joked that he was the glue holding them together, but deep down, they knew the truth. It was their collective love that kept them strong. One summer evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the landscape, the entire Harper family gathered in the backyard for a special occasion. It was the 20th anniversary of the day John had found the girls under that broken bus shelter. To mark the milestone, they had organized a celebration, not just for themselves, but for everyone whose lives Harper House had touched over the years. Tables groaned under the weight of food, Chloe's signature pies, homemade pasta salads, fresh fruits from Sophie's garden, and platters of grilled chicken marinated in secret spices. Strings of fairy lights twinkled above, turning the space into a magical wonderland. Music played softly in the background, courtesy of Ava's playlist, which included songs she had written specifically for the event. Children ran around laughing, their faces painted with butterflies and superheroes, while teenagers lounged on picnic blankets, sharing stories and dreams for the future. At the center of it all stood John, seated in a comfortable chair beneath a canopy of flowers. He looked older now, his hair silver and his face lined with age, but his eyes sparkled with the same warmth and kindness that had drawn the girls to him all those years ago. As he watched the festivities unfold, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This was his legacy, not wealth or fame, but the countless lives he had helped shape. Mia stepped forward, holding a microphone. "Before we eat," she began, her voice steady yet emotional, "we wanted to say thank you to the man who made all of this possible." She gestured toward John, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. 20 years ago, you took us in when no one else would. You gave us a home, a family, and most importantly, a chance to believe in ourselves. Because of you, we're standing here today, not just as individuals, but as a force for good. The crowd erupted into applause, but Mia wasn't finished. And because of you, so many others have found hope too. Harper House isn't just a building. It's a symbol of what can happen when people choose love over indifference, action over apathy. So tonight, we want to honor you in a way that reflects everything you've done for us. She paused, signaling for someone to bring out a large object covered in a cloth. With a flourish, Mia unveiled the surprise. A life-sized bronze statue of John, sculpted by a local artist. It depicted him kneeling beside a child, his hand resting gently on their shoulder, a gesture that captured the essence of who he was. The inscription at the base read, "To John Harper, who believed in us when we couldn't believe in ourselves. Forever, our hero." Tears welled up in John's eyes as he stared at the statue. He tried to speak, but words failed him. Instead, he stood slowly, leaning on his cane, and walked over to embrace each of the girls in turn. "You didn't have to do this," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm the one who should be thanking you for reminding me what it means to live, to love, to truly make a difference." The celebration continued late into the night, with speeches, performances, and heartfelt conversations. Former foster kids spoke about how Harper House had changed their lives, crediting John and the girls for showing them that they mattered. Neighbors shared memories of watching the Harpers grow from a ragtag group of misfits into pillars of the community. Even strangers who had heard about the event online stopped by, eager to witness the magic firsthand. As the clock struck midnight, the party began to wind down. Exhausted but content, the family gathered around the fire pit for one last moment, together. The flames crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on their faces. For a while no one spoke. They simply sat in companionable silence, savoring the connection they had forged through years of triumphs and trials. Finally, Lily broke the quiet. "Do you remember that night?" she asked, her gaze fixed on the stars. "The night we first met, we were so scared, so lost. I thought my life was over. I thought no one would ever care about me again," Emily added, hugging her knees to her chest. "And now look at us," Ava said, smiling. "We're not just survivors, we're change-makers, all because of you, John." John shook his head, his eyes glistening. "No, sweetheart, you saved yourselves. I just gave you a little push." "That's not true," Mia interjected firmly. "You gave us everything. Without you, none of this would exist." Sophie nodded, her voice soft, but resolute. "You taught us that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. About choosing to stand by someone even when it's hard. That's what you did for us, and that's why we'll always be here for you." Chloe leaned over to squeeze John's hand. "Forever and always." In that moment, surrounded by the people he loved most, John realized that his journey had come full circle. He had started out as a lonely mechanic, searching for meaning in a quiet, predictable life. Along the Aureo way, he had stumbled upon 6 frightened girls, and in doing so he had found purpose, joy, and a family that transcended bloodlines. Together they had created something extraordinary, a legacy of love that would endure long after they were gone. As the fire burned lower and the cicadas sang their nightly song, John closed his eyes, letting the warmth of the moment wash over him. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. Harper House and the family it represented would continue to thrive, because love, like the flames before them, had a way of spreading, lighting up the darkest corners of the world. And so, under the vast expanse of the starlit sky, the Harper family made a silent promise to carry their legacy forward, to keep believing, keep fighting, and keep loving. Because sometimes the greatest stories aren't written by fate, they're crafted by ordinary people who choose to do extraordinary things.